All right, let's talk about one of Python's coolest and honestly most powerful features, string slicing.
You know, when you're working with text, you almost never need the whole thing at once, right? More often, you just want a specific piece of it.
And Python has this incredibly elegant way to do just that. So let's dive in and see how you can become a pro at carving up text with Python's slicing tool.
To get started, we're going to use this really simple cake analogy, and I promise it'll make the whole concept just click.
So before we start slicing our cake, we kind of need to know what it's made of. In Python, any piece of text, doesn't matter if it's one letter or a whole novel, is stored in what we call a string. That's all it is really, just a sequence of characters.
So how do we tell Python exactly where we want to cut? Well, the secret is that every single character in a string gets its own unique address. We call that its index.
Now get this. This is where Python gets really clever. Every character doesn't have just one address, it has two. You can count from the beginning using positive numbers, starting with 0, of course, or you can count backwards from the end using negative numbers, starting with -1.
Let's look at the word Python. See that P at the start? It's at index 0. But look, it's also at index -6 if you count from the back. And the N at the end, it's at index 5, and it's also at index -1. This whole dual address thing is what makes slicing so incredibly flexible.
All right, enough theory. We've got our addresses, our indexes. Let's actually use them and make our first cut.
The basic way to do this is super simple. You're going to love it. You just take the string, add some square brackets, and put your start and end index inside, separated by a colon. The character at the start index gets included, but, and this is the part you absolutely have to remember, the character at the end index does not. Okay, so let's try slicing our Python string from index 1 up to index 4. The result we get is YTH. Now, let's look back at our chart. Index 1 is Y, 2 is T, 3 is H. Okay, that makes sense. But hang on a second. Index 4 is the letter O. So why isn't the O in our slice? And that right there is probably the single most important rule of slicing. The end index is always exclusive. The slice runs right up to that character, but it never actually includes it. It might feel a little weird at first, but it's how a lot of programming languages work. So when you see 1, 4, you have to think, okay, start at 1 and go up to, but don't touch, 4.
Okay, you've totally got the start and end down. Ready to level up? Let's add a third piece to our syntax called the step. This is where slicing goes from useful to downright magical.
All you do is add another colon and a number. This is the step, and it tells Python how many characters to jump over after it grabs one. If you don't put anything there, Python just assumes you mean a step of 1, which means grab every single character.
So for example, if we do //2, we're telling Python to go through the whole string, but only grab every second character. So with Bahubali, it'll grab the B, skip an A, grab the next A, skip the H, grab the U, and so on. What you're left with is BAUAI. Pretty neat, right?
And this little step parameter is the key to one of Python's most famous, and I think most elegant little party tricks. How could you reverse an entire string with just one simple, clean line of code?
You just use a step of -1. A negative step tells Python to go backwards. And since we didn't give it a start or end, it just starts from the very end of the string and steps backward one character at a time. Boom! The whole string is instantly reversed. It's fast, it's clean, and it's just so perfectly Pythonic.
Okay, I know that was a whirlwind, but really all just boils down to a few core ideas. Let's do a super quick recap so you can slice anything with total confidence.
Honestly, if you can just lock these 4 rules into your brain, you'll be set. Rule 1, the end index is always left out. Rule 2, if you leave out the start, it just assumes you mean the very beginning. 3, leave out the end, it'll go all the way to the very last character. And 4, a negative step means you're going backwards. That's it. That's the whole game. So you've totally got string slicing down now. But let me leave you with a final thought. This amazing syntax, it isn't just for strings. Slicing is a fundamental concept for any kind of ordered data in Python. It works exactly the same way on other things, like lists and tuples. So the next time you're working with a list, you'll know you have this powerful tool ready to go. And that is a fantastic thing to explore next.